only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Cosa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families.
An NBA Hall of Famer walks into an underground poker game. It sounds like the setup to a joke, right? But this time, the punchline isn't funny. This story involves X-ray poker tables for Mafia families and tens of millions of dollars stolen across 11 states. What you're about to hear will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about professional basketball, and it's happening right now. This shocking revelation feels like something straight out of a Martin Scorsese film, a tangled web of organized crime, NBA legends, underground poker games rigged with James Bond-level technology, and a massive federal investigation spanning 11 states and involving more than 30 defendants. But this isn't Hollywood fiction, it's real life, unfolding in October 2025. And the implications for the integrity of professional sports are
New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Cosa Nostra
are absolutely staggering. On the morning of October 23, 2025, Americans woke up to explosive news that sent shockwaves through the sports world. The FBI, working in coordination with the NYPD, Homeland Security Investigations, and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York, announced a sweeping series of federal indictments that exposed the dark underbelly of America's rapidly expanding sports betting industry. Leading the press conference was FBI Director Kash Patel, a figure whose rare public appearances usually signify a matter of national importance. And this time was no exception. What Patel revealed seemed almost unimaginable in today's sports era. La Cosa Nostra, the infamous Italian-American mafia, had allegedly partnered with NBA insiders to carry out one of the most sophisticated gambling fraud operations in U.S. history. The names implicated were jaw-dropping. Chauncey Billups, yes, that Chauncey Billups, the five-time NBA All-Star, 2004 Finals MVP, and beloved Mr. Big Shot, who now serves as head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers. Terry Rozier, the high-flying Miami Heat guard with a nearly $100 million contract. And Damon Jones, the former NBA player best known for his 2007 Finals run alongside LeBron James in Cleveland. These weren't fringe figures or retired journeymen. They were respected, trusted, and admired by millions of fans around the world. But according to federal prosecutors, the scandal went far beyond the actions of a few individuals. This wasn't a single scheme, it was two massive, interconnected criminal operations running side by side. The first, codenamed Operation Nothing But Bet, involved an insider sports betting conspiracy that exploited confidential NBA information to defraud sportsbooks and unsuspecting bettors. Players and coaches allegedly leaked details about when certain stars would sit out due to injury or rest, when they might leave games early under the pretense of minor ailments, and even when teams planned to tank strategically to improve draft odds. Armed with this insider knowledge, conspirators placed fraudulent bets worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, turning the game itself into a rigged system of profit and deceit.
What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing.
The second operation, dubbed Operation Royal Flush, read like something straight out of a spy thriller. Beginning as early as 2019, prosecutors allege it involved a nationwide network of rigged underground poker games hosted in some of America's most glamorous locations: sprawling Hamptons estates, glittering Las Vegas casinos, sun-soaked Miami venues, and luxury penthouses in Manhattan. But these weren't your typical card-marking scams. Investigators say the operation relied on cutting-edge technology that would make even a Hollywood screenwriter blush. According to the indictments, poker tables were outfitted with X-ray systems capable of seeing through face-down cards. Even the shuffling machines, specifically modified Deckmate 2 units, had been tampered with, fitted with hidden wireless chips that could read and transmit the order of every deck. That information was then sent in real time to an off-site operator, who determined which player held the strongest hand and relayed it back to a designated conspirator at the table, known as the quarterback. The quarterback would then signal other members of the ring using subtle, prearranged gestures, discrete earpieces, or coded messages. Prosecutors also detailed the use of hidden cameras concealed within chip trays, specially treated contact lenses and glasses that could reveal invisible card markings, and other elaborate tools designed to ensure the cheater's dominance. In essence, every moment of the game, from
fraud, is mind-boggling. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's not even millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation.
The deal to the final discard was allegedly under the conspirators' control, leaving unsuspecting victims with virtually no chance of walking away with a win. But here's where the story takes an even darker and more disturbing turn, into territory most Americans thought was long buried in history books or confined to old mob movies. Behind all the high-tech poker tables, the rigged games, and the insider betting schemes stood four of New York's most notorious organized crime families: the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese families. Together, they make up four of the legendary five families that have dominated American organized crime since the 1930s, when Lucky Luciano first established the modern mafia structure. To grasp the gravity of this scandal, it helps to understand who these families are. The Genovese family, once led by Charles Lucky Luciano himself, has long been regarded as the most powerful and secretive of them all, with deep influence across New York's gambling underworld and beyond. The Gambino family brings back memories of the flamboyant John Gotti era, the dapper Don of the 1980s and early 1990s, famous for his tailored suits and public swagger, until his empire eventually crumbled. Among the defendants in this new case is Angelo Ruggiero Jr., son of Angelo Quack Quack Ruggiero, one of Gotti's closest associates. Ironically, his father's nickname came from his tendency to talk too much, a habit that ultimately helped federal agents bring down the Gambino empire decades ago. The Bonanno family earned infamy during the Banana Wars of the 1960s, a violent internal feud that nearly destroyed the organization from within. The Lucchese family, meanwhile, has remained one of the most enduring forces in organized crime, with deep roots in labor racketeering and a reputation for quiet, calculated survival through countless law enforcement crackdowns. Federal prosecutors allege that this poker ring alone defrauded victims of at least $7.5 million, though investigators believe the real figure could be much higher as the case unfolds. And when victims couldn't pay their debts quickly enough, that's when the Mafia's enforcement arm stepped in. Court documents detail scenes of shocking brutality, beatings of debtors, threats against family members, and even a 2023 armed robbery carried out to steal one of the modified shuffling machines. Investigators suspect the robbers intended to either use the device in their own games or sell it to another criminal operation. While this high-tech poker ring thrived in secret, a parallel insider betting scheme was quietly exploiting the weaknesses of America's booming legalized sports gambling industry. And that's where this scandal hits home for millions of everyday sports fans. It exposes the deep vulnerabilities in a market that has exploded since the Supreme Court's 2018 decision in Murphy v. NCAA, which struck down the federal ban on sports betting. That ruling opened the floodgates, allowing individual states to legalize and regulate sports wagering. Since then, the U.S. sports betting market has ballooned into a $100 billion a year industry. Online platforms like DraftKings, FanDuel, and BetMGM have become household names, saturating sports broadcasts with ads, partnering with major leagues, and transforming the fan experience into an interactive, bet-driven spectacle. The NBA has been at the forefront of this movement. Commissioner Adam Silver publicly supported legalized sports betting as early as 2014, years before it became mainstream. Since then, the league has struck lucrative partnership deals with betting companies, generating billions in revenue and turning basketball into a live, data-driven experience where fans can wager in real time on everything from final scores to individual player stats. But with that flood of money and excitement came enormous opportunities for corruption. The conspirators in this case exploited one of the most popular and least regulated aspects of modern betting: prop bets, short for proposition bets. These wagers don't focus on who wins or loses.
First indictment involves 6 defendants who are alleged to have participated in one of the most brazen sports corruption schemes since online sports betting became widely legalized in the United States. This scheme is an insider sports betting conspiracy that exploited confidential information about National Basketball Association athletes and teams.
Is the game, but instead on specific player performances, like whether LeBron James will score more than 25 points, whether Terry Rozier will log more than 30 minutes, or whether a player will record a double-double. Prop bets have exploded in popularity because they keep fans invested even during one-sided games, and because they generate massive profits for sportsbooks. Yet, as this scandal reveals, they also open the door for insider manipulation on a scale that few could have imagined. Here's where the story turns truly insidious. Between December 2022 and March 2024, prosecutors allege that the defendants exploited a critical timing gap between when NBA teams make internal decisions about player availability and when that information becomes public. In practice, every NBA team holds morning shootarounds, medical evaluations, and strategy meetings where coaches decide who will play, how many minutes they'll get, and whether anyone should sit out for rest or minor injuries. These decisions often happen hours, or even an entire day, before the official injury reports are released to the media. Within that narrow but crucial window, insiders have access to information that the betting public doesn't, creating a massive opportunity for manipulation. According to the indictment, this insider scheme played out in at least 7 NBA games involving the Charlotte Hornets, Los Angeles Lakers, Portland Trail Blazers, Orlando Magic, Cleveland Cavaliers, Toronto Raptors, and Chicago Bulls. One of the clearest examples occurred on March 23, 2023, when the Charlotte Hornets faced the New Orleans Pelicans. Terry Rozier, then playing for the Hornets, was listed as healthy and ready to go. But prosecutors say Rozier privately texted his childhood friend, Dairo Laster, revealing that he planned to leave the game early, faking a foot injury as the excuse. Armed with this inside information, Laster and other conspirators allegedly rushed to place massive, under-prop bets on Rozier's points, minutes, and other stats, reportedly wagering over $200,000. To avoid detection by sportsbook fraud systems, they distributed the bets across multiple straw bettors using different accounts. The results were exactly as predicted. Rozier played only around 10 minutes, scored just 5 points, and exited early claiming injury. 2 days later, he returned to the lineup without receiving any legitimate treatment, confirming suspicions that the injury had been fabricated. But Rozier's case was just one piece of a much larger operation. Former NBA player and coach Damon Jones allegedly served as the crucial link between the rigged poker operation and the insider betting network. Prosecutors claim Jones used his access as an unofficial member of the Los Angeles Lakers coaching staff during the 2022-2023 season to sell confidential information about star players, most notably LeBron James and Anthony Davis, 2 of the most heavily bet-on athletes in professional basketball. One instance cited in the indictment occurred on February 9, 2023, when Jones allegedly texted associates advising them to bet against the Lakers. Through inside channels, he had learned that LeBron James, referred to in court documents as Player 3, but easily identifiable, would sit out the game against the Milwaukee Bucks. Because that information hadn't yet been made public, sportsbooks still assumed James would play, creating a rare window of opportunity for guaranteed profit. A similar event unfolded on January 15, 2024, when Jones allegedly shared advance knowledge that both James and Davis would be limited before a Lakers game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Again, his co-conspirators placed targeted bets before the information was released, securing easy wins. These weren't harmless side wagers. Prosecutors say the conspiracy generated over $1 million in fraudulent winnings, with legitimate bettors and sportsbooks losing several million in the process. Another stunning allegation centers on Chauncey Billups and the Portland Trail Blazers. On March 24, 2023, prosecutors claim that Billups, or a co-conspirator fitting his description, leaked insider knowledge that the Blazers planned to tank a game against the Chicago Bulls by resting key players like Anthony Simons to improve their draft odds. While tanking is a known late-season strategy in the NBA, advanced knowledge of it is gold for gamblers. With certainty about which players would sit out, The conspirators allegedly placed more than $100,000 in bets, reaping near-guaranteed profits. The methods used to execute and conceal these schemes were equally sophisticated. The defendants allegedly laundered their winnings through cryptocurrency transactions, peer-to-peer payment apps like Venmo and Cash App, traditional bank transfers, and cash exchanges. They maintained multiple sportsbook accounts under fake or borrowed identities, spreading wagers across platforms to avoid raising red flags. To make their activity appear legitimate, they even placed occasional losing bets to create the illusion of randomness and evade anti-fraud detection systems. And then comes the most unsettling layer of all, the involvement of organized crime. Behind this intricate web of insider betting and poker rigging stood four of New York's most infamous mafia families. Many people online have
This alleged illegal gambling operation hustled unwitting victims out of tens of millions of dollars and created a financial pipeline for La Cosa Nostra to help fund and facilitate their organized criminal activity.
asked, wait, the mafia still exists? It's a fair question. Popular culture often portrays the Italian-American mob as a relic of the past, dismantled by the FBI's RICO prosecutions in the 1990s and 2000s. But as this case demonstrates, those old networks never truly disappeared. They adapted, evolved, and found new ways to thrive, this time in the billion-dollar world of legalized sports gambling. Law enforcement officials have made one thing abundantly clear. La Cosa Nostra, which translates to "this thing of ours" in Italian and is the true name for what Americans commonly call the Mafia, never truly disappeared. The sweeping prosecutions of the 1980s and 1990s under the RICO Act may have decimated the leadership ranks of New York's five families, sending some of the most powerful mob bosses in history to prison. But organized crime didn't die, it simply evolved. John Gotti died behind bars, and Vincent, the Chin Gigante, the Genovese boss notorious for wandering Greenwich Village in a bathrobe while pretending to be insane, met the same fate. Countless capos, soldiers, and associates turned informants, helping federal authorities dismantle the mafia's old structure. Yet, as history shows, organized crime has always been adaptable. According to FBI Assistant Director Christopher Ria, who spoke emphatically at the October 23 press conference, the Bureau has never stopped monitoring Italian organized crime in New York. He stressed that while La Cosa Nostra may no longer dominate headlines the way it once did, the families remain active, still extorting, running illegal gambling rings, and finding new sources of revenue. One of those ventures, prosecutors allege, was their partnership with NBA insiders to fund broader criminal enterprises. The indictments name 13 defendants with ties to the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese families, along with additional links to the Lucchese network. These were not low-level criminals. They included capos, soldiers, and trusted enforcers with real authority inside their organizations. Among them was Joseph Camerano Jr., identified as an acting boss within the Bonanno family. He allegedly oversaw the poker operations out of a Long Island coffee shop called Grand Cafe, which investigators describe as a front for illegal gambling activity dating back to 2012. Also charged was Angelo Ruggiero Jr., a Gambino family enforcer and the son of the infamous Angelo Quack Quack Ruggiero, who reportedly handled violent debt collections in the Hamptons. Another key figure, Ernest Ernie Muscarella of the Genovese family, is accused of running the money laundering arm of the operation, maintaining international connections to move funds through multiple jurisdictions. Perhaps the most alarming revelation is that the sophisticated cheating technology used in these schemes isn't some covert government prototype, it's readily available online. A New York Post investigation found that X-ray poker tables, similar to those described in the indictment, can be purchased on specialty websites for around $5,000, complete with tutorial videos explaining their use. Modified shuffling machines like the Deckmate 2, which can be hacked to read and transmit deck order, are available for $1,000 to $2,000, while full kits of marked cards and special lenses sell for under $500, openly marketed as Advantage Play devices. The technology is easy to acquire. What's hard is having the organization and enforcement power to make victims pay up when they lose, and that's where the Mafia came in. Federal documents detail violent incidents that underscore just how dangerous these operations remain. Nearly $1.8 million in gambling debts were allegedly collected through threats, intimidation, and outright assault. One victim was even robbed at gunpoint, the target being a single rigged shuffling machine, a sign that even within the criminal network, there was competition and infighting over access to these valuable tools. When wealthy players couldn't cover their poker losses, sometimes running into the hundreds of thousands of dollars in one night, mob enforcers reportedly appeared at their homes or workplaces to remind them of the consequences of non-payment. The investigation that ultimately unraveled these intertwined operations stands as a showcase of modern law enforcement at its best. The FBI conducted extensive wiretaps, intercepting thousands of calls and text messages between the conspirators. Search warrants led to the seizure of physical evidence, including the modified shufflers, marked cards, special lenses, and X-ray tables. Agents also worked closely with Italian authorities, tracing cryptocurrency transactions and shell companies used to launder money across borders. Most impressively, undercover agents and cooperating witnesses infiltrated the poker games themselves, documenting the cheating in real time. But the fallout from this case extends far beyond the courtroom. The NBA maintains strict rules against gambling-related misconduct, and Commissioner Adam Silver holds the authority to issue lifetime bans to any player, coach, or staff member found guilty of betting on NBA games, sharing insider information, or manipulating outcomes. The precedent was set earlier with John Porter, who was permanently banned from the league for similar violations. If convicted, Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier could face the same punishment, even if they are acquitted in criminal court. The financial and personal stakes are enormous. Rozier is in the third year of a 4-year, $96.3 million contract with the Miami Heat. A lifetime expulsion from the NBA would void the remaining $26.6 million of his deal. For Billups, once hailed as one of the sport's most respected ambassadors, the damage to his reputation is already catastrophic. Regardless of the trial's outcome, the stigma of these allegations will likely follow him for life. The NBA, too, faces mounting scrutiny for failing to uncover the conspiracy sooner. The league reportedly investigated Rozier in 2023 after a suspicious game against the Pelicans, but ultimately cleared him of wrongdoing. His attorney, Jim Trusty, now argues that this prior exoneration undermines the federal case. Prosecutors disagree, pointing out that the NBA lacked subpoena power and access to key evidence, particularly the intercepted communications and financial records that only law enforcement could obtain. Legal proceedings are currently unfolding across multiple jurisdictions. Billups is scheduled to appear in Brooklyn Federal Court on November 24, while Rozier, who was released on a $6 million bond secured by his Miami home, has been ordered to surrender his passport and refrain from any gambling activity. The FBI insists their investigation is far from over. Assistant Director Rhea called the case only the tip of the iceberg, suggesting that more arrests could follow. As the legal process moves forward, it raises an even deeper question about the hidden costs of America's gambling boom. Every rigged poker hand, every insider bet, and every manipulated outcome chips away at the public trust that makes sports meaningful. Because once fans start believing that the games themselves are fixed, no amount of revenue, entertainment, or technology will ever be enough to win that trust back.